I'm joined by the Rebel StarBuck right now. Big match coming up for you at Tajiri's 30th anniversary show
Hmm.
on September 28th. But before we get there, I kind of wanted to talk about your history in the wrestling business. I found this interesting. You're a Canadian living in Finland.
Yeah.
Is that correct? What brought you to Finland, I guess is the right question.
Well, to be honest, in the mid 90s, there's a terrible recession in Eastern Canada. I was living in Ontario
Mhm.
and the economy was just the drizzling shits. So I was applying for a job as an illustrator with Disney Studios. So that by trade, I'm a graphic artist. I was accepted, like I passed the test, but the thing is that they take people on every half year. So basically, I was too late for the batch that was now going to be hired. I
Mhm.
would have had to wait for an additional half year. At that point, it was such a dire situation financially. I figured, okay, I'm going to head out to Finland for a bit. My parents are both Finnish immigrants, right? So I knew the language. I figured I'd just take some time out. Maybe I'd come back to Canada, let's say half a year later, whatever have you, and just try again. But I ended up starting my own business in Finland after four months of living here.
Mhm.
So I got stuck.
You have a lot going on, like pro wrestler, musician. I didn't know the graphic illustrator part, but
Yeah,
uh, has that always just been something like have you been like creatively driven like that, or is that
yeah,
something?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
always
Disney's
say
a
that the
pretty big
good,
deal. Like
yeah,
to if you're getting to try out with them, that you
yeah.
have some skills.
Well, that's the thing is that I'm a believer myself that I believe in Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, and I really believe that the Lord gives you certain gifts. God Himself gives you certain gifts, right? So some people they get a few more gifts than the guy next to them. Luckily, myself, I have the gift of the gift of art. I have the gift of musicianship, so I can write. So I'm a songwriter. I have two active bands that I'm a lead singer in, and I've been a singer now for 25 years. So, in addition to that, I'm a voiceover artist. So I'm one of the top B2B, B2C export voiceover speakers in all of Finland in native English. So, with that in mind, and plus professional wrestling, it's yeah, I was given a few gifts and by cracky, I'm glad to have them because life would be dull without them.
Do you have any voiceover roles that fans might be familiar with, like
Well, I'll
in the
tell you
United
what,
States?
I've spoken to the companies I've spoken for. I mean, they're multinational companies. They're anything from McDonald's to Battery to Nissan.
Mm.
Uh, I did one of the voiceovers for Ford Mustang for their electronic version, right?
Mm.
So the electronic car. Um, I so it's if you go to my website, so my real name is Michael Maggiolotti, and if you go to Maggiolotti, Majalahti.com, you can find my voiceover section. You can also find my acting section,
Mm.
and you can see a ton of work that I've done over the past decade plus, all across the landscape for big companies.
One other thing that caught my eye was you were born in Timmins.
Yeah,
Shania Twain is from Timmins. She
yeah.
was born there, but she was raised there. Like, any fun stories about, like, did you know who she was coming up, or was that
No,
something that happened like
no,
did you know of her, or was it
no.
something that like she got popular after she left or you
Yeah.
left?
Well, that's the whole thing. She got popular after she left, and yeah. So like, they had a sorry, not musician, museum there for the longest time in Timmins, the Shania Twain Museum. I think it's closed down now, but she rose to public acclaim well after I had moved out. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how you find those links. Like I was just thinking like I know a little bit about you, I know a little bit about her, and then the
Mm.
first thing I was like, oh, Timmons, like I know that. And like I'm sure like most people would be like, what a like
Mm.
it's weird how my mind works, like where I'll catch on to a little detail and I'll be like, oh, I gotta ask about that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's all right.
so I want to talk about the Tajiri match now because
Mhm.
this is a big deal for you. We spoke a little bit before we started recording today, and you
Mhm.
kind of told me about how important it is to your career.
Yeah.
Obviously a big deal for Tajiri, but this isn't the first match that you guys have had. If cage match is correct, this is like over 20 that you guys have had in your career. And
Well, the thing is, I think we've had seven singles, so we're tied right now with Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid. Plus all the tags. We've done a ton of tag matches, right, against one another and with as partners also with each other. But yeah, so like the thing with my career is that I started in 1992 in Calgary, Canada, as
Mhm,
a ring announcer and TV commentator. So one of the things that I've been gifted with is a good voice, and I've been able to parlay that voice ever since I was young. So that's why I got signed on with Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, is because of my voice.
mhm,
And during that time, I got to know guys like Lance Storm, Chris Jericho, Lenny St. Clair, who's now Luther in AEW, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, and every wrestler that is serious about their career, you're going to have a career goal. Now, for some guys like maybe Jericho or anybody, many others, it's WWE. But to be honest, WWE was never my career goal.
mhm,
And we're all built differently, and we're all kind of like geared in our own way. For me, my goal was Japan, and in 2007, I burned out twice during the year 2007 on a construction job, so I was completely wasted. Uh, I had gotten surgery uh, at that time also, so I was like, I had nasal surgery. I had my nose broken when I was younger, and then I had like maybe 30 some odd percent, maybe under 30% nasal air capacity in one of my sinuses. So I had my nose opened up a bit, and then I was on the sidelines, and I was like I was listening to Anthony Robbins,
mhm,
and the world's foremost life coach, and I was listening to his MP3s, and he asked a question about, there was a 7 question battery about what if you don't know what to do with your life and you're kind of lost as to what you should do, where you should go, whatever your calling is. Answer these questions, and I did. And I took a pen and some paper and I wrote them out. I wrote out my answers, and I got clear as to what I wanted from my life and what
mhm,
I wanted from my wrestling career. And I said, in the next year, I want to make it to Japan. Uh, I wasn't able to do that in
mhm,
2008. It took me 3 more years. So in 2010, I was able to foray over to Japan. And the thing is, like for myself, I always said to myself that if I could ever make it there, it's kind of like if I just go there once and I could just say that I've been there, maybe it's enough for me.
mhm,
Little did I know that I helped Jiri get booked in Finland. It was, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the 10th of February 2010, and I wrestled Tajiri. I worked Tajiri, and we had a hell of a great match.
mhm,
After our match, he says to me in the dressing room, "Hey, you want to go to Japan?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, I'd like to go. Yes." So I'm starting a new company, and I'm now going to be running shows on a monthly basis in Tokyo. I'm looking for new guys and new people that Japan hasn't seen yet.
mhm,
And if you want to go to Japan, I think the people in Japan would like you. And he brought me over. So we did a bunch of vignettes and a bunch of promos where I had sent some of my other students to Japan ahead of myself. So kind of like we set the groundwork for me coming to Japan.
mhm,
And through that, I went there, and my debut was the 24th of July, 2010. And little did I know that the plans that he had for me were much bigger than what I had expected. So there was a double show on that day. So there was a matinee afternoon show and an evening show. On the afternoon show, I wrestled Hajime Ohara, who is now one of the top guys in Noah.
mhm,
And I trounced him. I absolutely, basically squashed him. It was a glorified squash.
mhm,
Um, and on the evening show, I defeated Tajiri for the title. So the thing is that overnight, I had Tokyo Sports newspaper writing about me. I
mhm,
had Samurai TV doing pieces on me. I had the Japanese Press Weekly Pro Wrestling Magazine, et cetera, et cetera. I became a star, literally an overnight sensation overnight. And it was because Tajiri believed in me, because he said that the one thing that he always said in his promos when he built up my coming and my arrival in Japan, and there's one word that I could just make out, and that was charisma. He was saying, "This guy, he has charisma. He's got charisma. He's got charisma." And lo and behold, uh, by the beginning of the year 2011, Weekly Pro Wrestling Magazine's readership, they do a voting poll on match of the year, all
Mm.
the different companies, the foreign wrestler of the year, blah blah blah, most popular, etc. I was voted in the top five most popular amongst all companies, including New Japan, etc., etc., etc. I was number five. I think number one was Kenny Omega, but nonetheless, in 2010, I'd been there for 5 months, and I was already in the top five most popular in the entire country.
Yeah.
So that's where, like, not only did I make it, I exceeded what my expectations were, and I'm glad, and I'm so thankful to this day for the opportunity that Tajiri gave me. Because to be honest with you, in 2012, New Japan approached me and they said, "Now's the time to make the switch. Now's the time to come over." And I said at that point, Tajiri had just lost his promoter. He had fallen out with the guy that was promoting Smash, and he
Mhm.
had started WNC, Wrestling New Classic, and he had gotten a new money man, a new promoter. And he was restructuring and rebuilding with WNC after Smash. And I said to New Japan, I said, "I cannot do it. I cannot leave Mr. Tajiri because he's the man that opened the door for me to come to your country, to become a star in your country. And now he needs me more than ever." And out of integrity and out of respect for Tajiri, I said no to New Japan.
Yeah. And repaying that in a way, 14 years later, you're coming up on this match.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to hear you share just how influential he was on your career. Do you, I mean, is there one moment that you could pick from his career since we're talking about 30th anniversary milestone? Is there one that like you could think of that really made you a fan of him before you actually started working on that level with him?
I would just say that the thing that stood out to me about Tajiri, I discovered him more or less like as a character and as a wrestler in WWE. So I was aware of the fact he was in ECW and etc. But I really only caught on to him and started following his work when he went to WWE. And what stood out to me is the fact that he was different than everybody else. The way that he moved. Tajiri, I don't know if you've read his book or if you come across it. It's called What Pro Wrestlers Are Showing the Audience. It's available on Amazon, also in English. And it's worth a read because the thing is that he goes into detail about what he's learned in the wrestling business from Vince McMahon and from everybody else. And the one thing that he says that is that he believes that all wrestlers should almost be like incarnations in a way of animals. The way that you move, you're
Mhm.
like an animal. And with Tajiri, he's almost like a snake, the way that he like moves and slithers and comes out after you. And I remember, I think it was Tony St. Clair, one of the British legends, that said once that all wrestlers are like cats, like the lightweight wrestlers are just like house cats, or and the middleweights or whatever have you are like pumas or whatever, something like lynxes, or and then the heavyweights are like lions. And that's how you should approach it. You're always moving forward. You're always on defensive, offense, defense together, hands up, and you're attacking. You're always with your eyes on the prize. So in a way, for me, Tajiri caught my eye because he was like animal like in his movements, the way that he would react after doing key moves and key, his flash moves and whatever else, his tarantula, the spewing of the mist, even though that's an old thing with Great Muta and Great Kabuki and people like that. But nonetheless, as a package, I'm talking about Tajiri as a package stood out, and also his kicks because of the fact they were so loud due to his pants, because he wears those like the shiny pants that give the snap sound also.
I agree with you. Like, I caught on to him like on a more weekly basis because of WWE, but I was aware of his work in ECW, but like you really got to see like, the move like nobody moved like him.
No, nobody.
I don't think
Absolutely.
anybody still does, but he was very unique in that aspect. And this is September 28th is the Tajiri 30th anniversary show. Do you have any other events coming up you want to plug or promote it before we close this
Yeah,
up?
well, the thing is that so I run Slam Wrestling Finland, and we're on Triller TV. So I would recommend to everybody that listens to this interview to go to Triller TV. So that's Fight TV, right? And on Triller TV Plus, you can look up Slam Wrestling Finland, and you'll find a bunch of our different events there. Our next event is called Circle City Slam. So there's a city in Finland, in eastern Finland, called Hamina. It's a port city, but it's built in a circular fashion. Especially the centrum of the city is built in a circular fashion, and that's why they've nicknamed it Circle City. And we're holding the event there, and that is going to be on the 5th of October. And I'm wrestling a young, gifted Estonian kid that I trained up a few years ago named Artur Arter, and he had wrestled about almost 4 years of freestyle under Russian coaches
Mhm.
when he joined the Slam boot camp that we have, our training school. And so he was 17 years old. He was underage when he joined, and his mother had to sign the waiver. But now he's been wrestling for over a couple of years, and he's a natural. He's an absolute phenom as far as the way that he understands. He's like a sponge. He just takes everything in, and he is able to adapt on the fly to everything. So this is going to be his trial by fire. It's going to be on the 5th of October in Hamina, Finland, at Circle City Slam. So basically, Japan. I come back. The following weekend is going to be Circle City Slam.